Hello everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to the channel. I am here today with part 2 of my June 2020 book haul. So part 1, check that out if you haven't, that is all of my media tie-in books. So everything I picked up last month that was related to the world of media, whether it was a video game, TV series, or film, it was tied into the world of media somehow. The rest of these books, however, are not. So these are basically everything else, all of the other books I grabbed in the month of June, which, again, it's ridiculous. Fortunately, the biggest stack here is from the thrift store, so I only paid about 50 cents for these, but there are some various stacks that I'm going to go through, so we have a lot to talk about again today, so without further ado, let's dive right in. I mentioned in part 1 of my book haul this month that 2nd & Charles is one of my favorite stores, and that is owned by the same company that owns Books A Million. And so I actually stopped in at a Books A Million for the first time in quite some time, and they had some awesome options on their clearance shelves. So that's where these next 4 books, or these first 4 books, I guess, are all coming from. Excuse the crinkling bag. For some reason, I just want to be as obnoxious as I possibly can. So with that out of the way, all right, so again, these are all from the clearance section. So first up is from R.L. Stine, we have the Return to Fear Street series, The Wrong Girl. So I think this is book 3 in the Return to Fear Street series, or book 2 maybe? I can't remember exactly, but it's one of the first few in that series. So this was on sale for $3.99 from Books A Million. So of course, it's an R.L. Stine book. I'm going to grab it. And I just love the style, this trade paperback floppy style, and the cover art looks really good. So we'll see how I enjoy this. Obviously, I'm a huge Stine fan. And yeah, so picked up The Wrong Girl from the Return to Fear Street series for $3.99 from Books A Million. I'm not much of a hardcover collector, but when you get a book like this for $5, it was actually marked, I took all the stickers off, it was marked at $7, but was in like the $5 bin, and so I had them check it out to make sure how much it was, and it was only $5. This is Artemis, written by Andy Weir, so you'll probably recognize the book just because it's very popular, but if you only recognize the author, it's probably because he is the author of The Martian, which I did read and talked about on the channel previously. I think it was just in a wrap-up though. I preferred the movie The Martian to the book, which I know is, you know, sacrilege at this point, but either way, I thought the book was good. I just like the movie more, so I'm interested to see how Artemis is. I've heard a lot of mixed things about this, but for $5 in a hardcover, which is not, frankly, not my preferred choice, you know, that's okay though. For $5, I'm gonna grab it. So Artemis from Andy Weir. This is one that I was really excited to find because not too long ago, I was at Barnes & Noble and I came across this. It had just come out, and it was basically described as like a found footage film, but done in book form. And that is Diary of a Haunting, written by M. Verano. So if you don't know, I am a huge found footage fan, and obviously, you know, I like horror books, so this is going to be a young adult horror book, I believe, but I'm hoping that I will still enjoy it. So obviously it's just going to be a haunting book, but told in diary form. So this should be really cool. This next one is one that I've been wanting to read for so long, and I can't believe I found it in the clearance section for like $5 from Books A Million. So this is Alumini, or Alumini, I don't know exactly how to say that, but it's book number 1 in this series, which I believe is I can't remember if it's a duology or a trilogy, but so the reason I want to do this one in physical form as opposed to audiobook was because it's written in a very unique style. You can see like there's scripts in here, like classified documents. It's told in a very unique way, and so it's one that screams to be read in the physical form. Now, I have heard that the audiobook for this is incredible, so if I like this, maybe I'll eventually check out the audiobook, or maybe I'll read the audiobook for the second in the series, which is Gemina. But we'll see. This is a big, thick one, so we'll see how long it takes me to get through it. But super excited to have this one in my collection now, just because I've been wanting it since since I started watching BookTube. This one was talked about, and I've wanted it ever since. And I got it for $5, so super happy to have this one now. Okay, let's move over to my dollar store finds, which I actually just picked up today. So first up is Light as a Feather, and this is written by Zoe Arson. So I actually came across this at Books A Million in their clearance section, but it was like $5 and I decided to pass on it. It was at the dollar store for $1, so I grabbed it. This is a Hulu original series. So I think that this book was written first, and then the series was based off the book. But I could be wrong. Maybe this did belong in my media tie-in episode as opposed to this one. I don't know, but I think that's how it went. I think the book came first, which if the book comes first, it goes in this video. If the other piece of media came first, it went in my first video. That's how I looked at it. So, you know, light as a feather, stiff as a board was what the previous title was, as according to the bottom, if you can read that there. So obviously it's based on that, what would that be? I don't know, urban legend? That's the word I'm looking for. It'd be based on that urban legend. So Light as a Feather, written by Zoe Arson. The second book I grabbed from the dollar store is Sanctuary, and this was written by Karen Licks. So the first time I read through this, I skimmed it and it didn't look that interesting, but then I, gave it another read, and it actually sounds pretty cool. So this, the main character here is wanting to be a guard on this, basically this prison that's outside of Earth because it houses teens with superpowers. So eventually she becomes a guard, and she gets taken hostage by these teens, and she expects her mom, who is like the person that oversees everything, to help her out, but her mom is more interested in protocol than saving her. So instead she devises her own escape plan, but something else shows up on this space station, and so it sounds like it's something, sci-fi related and, horror related. I imagine it's going to be young adult, but that's okay. So, I don't know. It sounds interesting. The cover is okay. It's kind of cool. This part wants it to be really cool, but then the rest of it kind of lets it down. So it's a hit and miss cover for me. But anyway, Sanctuary by Karen Licks should be pretty decent, especially for $1. If you guys watched part 1 of my book haul, you might remember that I talked about the Second and Charles that had their dollar clearance bin. Well, these books are from that as well. They're just not media tie-in related. Actually, this one I'll show first was actually $2, but this is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I've heard a ton of good things about this. It is a middle grade, I believe, book that is supposed to be very powerful. So excited to read this one. Of course, there's a movie based on it, but the book came first, so it's not a media tie-in book. So Monster Calls by Patrick Ness was $2 from Second and Charles. And then we have a horror book that was written by Robert Dunbar. I own the first one in the series, called The Pines, but this is The Shore. And I believe this is a trilogy. I can't remember what the third one's called, but The Pines and The Shore are the first 2 books in it, so now I own the first 2. I don't really know what this is about. Let's see. So it looks like it is something with a monstrous evil, so it should be interesting. So The Shore by Robert Dunbar. And this one I just had to grab because it was an Alan Dean Foster book. I don't know anything about it. It's actually part of a, like if you look on Goodreads, it is listed as part of a series, but I don't think they're tied together at all. I don't know really what ties them together. The stories are not tied together. I'm sure there's something in the world that makes them part of the same series, but I can't say for sure without having read any of them. But this one was $1, so I grabbed it. This is I should have looked at how to say it first, but it's Cacalot or Cacalot. That's a ridiculous name, but it's by Alan Dean Foster, so I grabbed it. So this is, man had nearly destroyed the great sea creatures, and now were they taking their revenge? So we'll see how this one is. By Alan Dean Foster, we have Cacalot. I'm guessing that's how you say that anyway. And then we have a book by Carolyn B. Cooney, which I recognize that name as a young adult author who did a lot of point horror books, so I grabbed this. This is What Janie Found. So I believe this is actually book 4 of a series. So there's The Face in the Milk Carton, which I always remember seeing that book when I was a kid and wanting to get it, but I never did. And then Whatever Happened to Janie and The Voice on the Radio is book 3, and then What Janie Found is book 4. So I only own a handful of these, not the whole series. So you just got to get what you can get as you go, because everything, when you find it cheap, you want to pick it up. And this was $1, so I grabbed it. Oh, I forgot about this one. So this was not one that I purchased. This was one I picked up from my parents' house. I've never read it, and frankly, I don't even know how it ended up in my collection at my parents' house. But I, grabbed it because otherwise it's getting thrown away. So Tom Clancy's Net Force Virtual Vandals. So this is a series that's a young adult series that's based off of the Tom Clancy Net Force adult book. So I don't know much about this, but it's a series, and it was the first book in the series, so I figured I would do it. I see a ton of these books at the thrift store, so I'll probably start picking them up because it's 50 cents, but I don't know why. I probably will. So because I have the first one, so I'll probably keep going. But Tom Clancy's Net Force, let me know if you've read this at all or any of these books in this series to see if they're actually worth my time at all. Fortunately, they're relatively short. and I think they're aimed at a young adult audience, so they should be pretty easy to get through. So again, I didn't purchase this one, but I did grab it from my parents' house to add it to my collection. I showed some other purchases I grabbed from Ollie's in my last video, so this is the last one from that haul, and it is Thor, the Goddess of Thunder, and this is book number 1, or volume 1, I should say. So this is Lady Thor. I'm really excited to read this because I don't know anything about the female Thor, other than I've heard really good things about it. So this is pretty short. I think it's only like 5 issues, if I remember it. Yeah, issues 1 through 5 of the 2014 run. So, I don't know. We'll see. It's written by Aaron, who is, I think, known, if I'm remembering right, for his work on Thor. So, we'll see if I enjoy this as much as other people have. So, very interested to read this. So, Thor, the Goddess of Thunder, Volume 1, and this was only $4 in hardback from, what's it, Ollie's is the bookstore it was from. I still have a lot of books here, and all of the rest of these were purchased from multiple Salvation Armies. I think I went to like 3, maybe 4 over the past month, and so I grabbed some from each, and this is that. So all of these were 50 cents each, so keep that in mind as I'm going through them. They're very cheap. I have never read any John Saul books, but I usually pick them up when it looks like it's an interesting one, because frankly, some of Saul's books just don't look that interesting, but this one does. So this is Black Lightning by John Saul. Has a really cool cover, so I really enjoyed that. Yeah, so we'll see how this one is if I ever get to a John Saul book eventually. And another author, I just pick up their books when I see them if I don't have them, and that's Dean Koontz. So we have Demon Seed by Dean Koontz. Don't know much about Koontz because I've not read any of his work, but I do have a growing collection of Koontz novels, so there's that. This is one that I could talk more about, though, and actually I have. There's a dedicated video to this. It's a book versus movie episode of Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. So this one I actually own the audiobook of, but I never owned the physical copy. So for 50 cents, I'm adding it to my collection. That's how I got the second book in this series as well, The Lost World. I found it at a thrift store. So, I was just waiting to come across Jurassic Park. It was only a matter of time, and I finally did this past month. So Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. Excellent novel. If you've not read it, definitely check it out. I really enjoyed it, and I still love the movie, but the book is also worth reading. It's fantastic. Always thrilled when I can find a Stephen King novel in good shape for 50 cents, and this is Revival. This is one I do not own from King, and I've heard kind of mixed things about it, but it's a Stephen King book, so I want to own it. I'd love to own all of King's collection, or all of King's novels at some point, so this is just another one to add to that collection. Revival by Stephen King. This Goosebumps book is in really bad shape, but it's a Goosebumps book, so I grabbed it. It's one I don't own. It's Goosebumps Hall of Horrors, Night of the Giant Everything, and this is book 2 of the Hall of Horrors series. As you can see, the cover is not in the best shape, but it's definitely readable, and that's what matters to me in this case. So, Hall of Horrors from Goosebumps. This is Night of the Giant Everything, which is book number 2. I'm covering it up. Book number 2 in that series. I mentioned a month or two ago that I picked up a bunch of John Green novels because they were in the free bin at 2nd and Charles. Well, this is the next best thing. It's for 50 cents. Paper Towns by John Green. So I have only seen John Green movies. I've not actually read his work, but I have almost a ton of books from his bibliography, and I paid a total of 50 cents for them all. So you can't beat that. So Paper Towns by John Green. Next up is one of only 2 nonfiction books I grabbed from the thrift store, and that is Into Thin Air, written by John Krakauer. So this is a personal account of the Mount Everest disaster is the subtitle to this one. And I really enjoyed another book, which I will put up here because the name is just escaping me right now. I really liked this book a heck of a lot. And so I've heard this is very similar in style and tone, and so I wanted to check it out. So we'll see if I enjoy this one. I imagine I will because I liked this one so much, but we'll see. So Into Thin Air by John Krakauer. Another R.L. Stine book. This was one I used to own when I was much younger, and this is Hit and Run by Stine. This is another one that's part of the Point horror series, so I try to grab those whenever I can, and they're cheap, which I think I have another one coming up here in a few minutes. But Hit and Run by R.L. Stine. Next up is Hannibal, written by Thomas Harris. So I believe this is the 3rd book in the series. There's Red Dragon, there's Silence of the Lambs, and then there's Hannibal. So I've heard, great things about this series. I really want to start reading it, and I plan to read Silence of the Lambs, sooner rather than later. So hopefully I'll eventually get to this one. So Thomas Harris, Hannibal. So this one is related to one I showed earlier, and that is The Voice on the Radio by Carolyn B. Cooney. Like I said, this is part of the Face on the Milk Carton series. I think this is book 3 in that series, if I remember right. So Voice on the Radio by Carolyn B. Cooney. Another Kuntz novel. This is one I've seen a lot, but I never picked up, but I decided just to grab it because why not? This is Dragon Tears by Dean Koontz. Let me just show you the other two Koontz novels I grabbed. I grabbed Intensity and Shattered. And Intensity is obviously one of his most well-known novels, but Shattered, it sounds really interesting to me because this person is following these two people as they make their way across the country. So I think that one sounds more interesting. Intensity, frankly, I don't even know what it's about, but I know it's one of his more famous ones that I don't own and have not read, so I grabbed it. Next up is Night Fliers and Other Stories, written by George R.R. Martin. So obviously, Martin is best known for his Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones series, but this one did spark its own TV series as well, as you can see, the basis for the hit TV series. I've not seen that. I don't know much about it. I believe, this is all going to be sci-fi related, I believe, at least based on the cover. We'll see. But this is a short story anthology from Martin, so I figured I'd grab it for 50 cents. I mentioned earlier that I grabbed a second point horror book, but frankly, this doesn't say point horror on it. It just has that same style, so I don't know if it is or not. Let me know down in the comments below if this is part of the point horror series. But we have The Bride, written by D.E. Atkins. So this one just has one of those really cool covers, like the other, like Hit and Run is very similar cover style to it. So The Bride by D.E. Atkins. Then we have a few middle grade books. We have the Michigan Chillers series. I think I showed the American Chillers book I grabbed last month, but this is Michigan Chillers, and these are all written by Jonathan Rand. So this is book number 12, Aza Bowl Alligators. And we have a Goosebumps book that I didn't have, Revenge of the Long Gnomes. This is book number 34. Another one with just a very bad cover, but absolutely readable, so that'll do for now. And then the last of the middle grade, we have Animorphs. This is Megamorphs number 2, and this is In the Time of Dinosaurs. And you know what? I had this in my thrift store pile, but this was not actually from the thrift store. This was from Second and Charles, and it was one of my free books. They were doing a buy two, get one free on their middle grade selection, and so this was the free one in my buy two, get one free. So In the Time of Dinosaurs, which is from the Animorphs series, Megamorphs number 2. And last but not least is going to be a true crime book that I read a year or two ago that I absolutely loved, and that is I'll Be Gone in the Dark, One Woman's Obsessive Search for the Golden State Killer, and this is written by the late Michelle McNamara. So this is a really good book. It's not perfect, but it's so well done that I cannot recommend it enough. Unfortunately, Michelle McNamara passed away before she was completely finished with this, so it is completed by a couple other people whose names are not on the cover, and frankly, I don't remember their names. But definitely read this one if you enjoy reading true crime. If you are a true crime fanatic like I am, this should be on your list. I know it gets hyped up a lot and gets talked about a lot, but it lives up to that hype, in my opinion. This is definitely worth your time. So, I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. Cannot recommend this one enough. All right, so that's going to do it for part 2 of my June 2020 book haul. It was a ridiculous month for book purchasing. And again, the cost on this was so low because I got them all so cheap. That's not what concerns me. It's just the amount of space all of this is going to take up. That's why I need to slow it down, is because of the space, because that's ridiculous. I bought too many books this month. So I did order some books from eBay that have not come in, so those will be in my July book haul video. So check back for that. Hopefully that'll only be one part like it should be, but we'll see where the month takes me. So let me know down in the comments below, what did you pick up this month? And more importantly, somebody else recommends this also. If you have a book haul video that you filmed, please link that down in the comments below. I love watching book haul videos, so the more the merrier. And if maybe it's one I've missed that you've posted, please link that down in the comments below. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to Cinefessions here on YouTube. And if not, thank you anyway for watching. I really do appreciate it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. I just want to say thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.